Hey, Chuck.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
You just came in from Vegas, right?
Last night, yeah.
You have a customer conference going on. I understand you have some big announcements that you made, huh?
Yeah, we actually have 29,000 customers live, and we have about 100,000 that have been streaming in, viewing over the web all week. So I flew in last night, and I'm leaving here and going back for lunch in Vegas.
What? And I was telling him backstage, we don't want to twist his arm about returning to the desert after, being in the mountains.
Yeah, I really would prefer to stay here, honestly. But we did make some announcements this week. We had a lot of key announcements around what is probably one of the most critical areas to this whole connectivity notion, the Internet of Things, is around security. So we announced some pretty significant cloud-based stuff in security, as well as you mentioned tetration when we were introduced. We also announced some machine learning and analytics capability around security, because the security for the future is going to have to start the minute the data hits the network. We live in this massively distributed world where perimeters are gone, and they just don't exist. And so the whole notion of conveniently waiting for the traffic to get to a box where I can check it is just no longer valid. So we announced this week this technology that starts actually doing machine learning the minute the packets hit the wire, and then builds up a database of knowledge about what's happening, who's talking to who, what makes sense, and then lets you know when there are anomalies happening in the infrastructure. So it was a big announcement.
It is remarkable to me, when I was looking through all this news as it was coming out from the company, how much you're doing in security. We think of Cisco as a networking company, and it's starting to feel like a security company. And it's kind of surprising. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Can you explain why you're going so heavy into security? Are you a networking company, a security company?
Well, we also have a $4.5 billion collaboration business.
Yeah, so I've heard. Yeah.
So the key is that what I was saying before is as we connect, there are 8 million vehicles connected to an IoT platform we own called Jasper, right? 8 million vehicles. And if you didn't know, in the first quarter of this year, there were more vehicles connected to the internet than there were mobile phones for the first time ever, which is pretty amazing. And so as you look at that, the connection landscape is just expanding. And so the old model of having sort of a castle and a moat no longer exists. So the network is now the fundamental foundation for how security has to be deployed. There are lots of things you have to do on top of it, but if you don't do it at the network layer, then you will not be protected. So we feel like it's not only a tremendous opportunity, frankly, we think it's our obligation to make this work.
Is it really just something you need to layer onto your existing business to make it make sense? Because I feel like maybe you've said that you're the #1 enterprise security player, something like that, and that's crazy to me. You're not, you've not been historically a security company.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes we have tremendous thought leadership, and then when you peel the onion, we're still building our ability to execute. And sometimes we have tremendous ability to execute, and we're not viewed from a thought leadership perspective. And the security is the latter, right? We have a tremendous portfolio. We are the #1 enterprise IT security player, which most people don't know, but we only have like 8 or 9% market share. It's an incredibly fragmented market. And so the opportunity for us is combination of cloud security, which was an acquisition we announced last week called CloudLock, combined with some of our internal innovation. You bring these two together, and we've gone from probably 5 years ago not being viewed very seriously at all to today. Every enterprise customer believes that the network is fundamental to the future security architecture.
Right. So how has this? So looking back over Cisco, again, known for the boxes, known for the networks. How have you looked at this in the grand portfolio of the company, right? I mean, the commoditization of networking hardware has been tough for the company, but something that you seem to have been weathering okay. Are you getting into security and all the software because of that? How are you looking at the interplay between hardware and software?
Yeah, it's first of all, I love the discussion about the commoditization of our hardware. Our gross margins last quarter on product were higher than they've been in like 2 or 3 years. So. Which typically is reflective of the value and the differentiation that you actually provide. The notion, just to discuss this whole hardware notion and this theory that software is going to just completely replace hardware, there's a huge internet that runs every day on high-performance silicon, and to think that you're going to go, build some neat little software and replace all that and run this thing at the speed every time you pick up your phone and you look for something, there's a whole lot that happens behind the scenes, and I can tell you that's some high-performance hardware that's not going away anytime soon. But the hardware and software model, the way I think about it is, we should use software everywhere we can where it meets the use case, and then use high-performance hardware in combination with it where we need it. And that's sort of how we're thinking about it. And it's really more about what's meeting the needs of the customer, as opposed to, yeah, there are implications on our business model where we are absolutely moving to, when I'm talking to the financial community, it's more about the transition to a recurring revenue model that's critical for us for more predictability long term. But when you engage with our customers, it's just about speed to the benefit of the technology. I joked with our customers on stage this week at Cisco Live, and I said, as much as our team would like to believe that every customer wakes up in the morning and says, I just can't wait to buy a router, it actually doesn't happen that way. And increasingly there's so much required to help the customers understand how the technology enables the business benefits, because every customer is dealing with this digital transformation that's occurring. And we hit an inflection point from 2015 to 2016 where it is real now. And I think the stat of the more connected cars in Q1 versus connected mobile phones makes a huge statement.
And when you say it's real, are you talking about for Cisco, or are you talking about for the rest of the business community?
I'd say both. I mean, we're at the heart. You're not going to connect billions of devices by 2020 if we're not a part of it. Right. And you're not going to secure them if we're not a part of it. So it's both. But up until last year, I think we've done a lot of work in smart cities around the world. We've connected stadiums and changed the fan experience. And in 2015, we just felt this transition to moving from what's possible to how do I implement. And so, you have examples of companies that are like elevator companies that are looking at connecting 1 million elevators to the internet. And the interesting thing is when you talk about the use cases, they get really excited about tying in wireless location-based services with identity and understanding who it is and what do they like, and then delivering advertising into the elevator while they're standing there. But the reality is that the use case itself is built on their preventive maintenance and their ability to capture third-party maintenance contracts more effectively because of the information they have, and their ability to manage the energy, and everything else is just gravy on top.
Yeah.
And it's the same in manufacturing. And as I think about what we've seen over the last 3 decades, if you go back to the 90s, there was this killer app that everybody wanted to go after called e-commerce. And in this next wave of digitization, particularly in the industrial side of the business, the thing that really is coming out is this services business model up transition and the preventive maintenance opportunities, knowing something's going to break before it breaks. And the economics on that's just phenomenal.
And you see that as a core part of where you want to go. That's
Absolutely.
where Cisco needs to be.
We're working with Fanuc, which is the robot manufacturer in the auto manufacturing space, and we help build analytics capability. We've connected all those robots back because it's thousands and thousands of dollars per minute when those things are down. So if we can keep them from going down, then it's just a huge return.
So we're having a lot of conversation on this very stage about the Internet of Things this week, right? And one thing that I was wondering is, shouldn't this be a Cisco golden age? I mean, if you're in the business of connecting things, shouldn't this be the biggest opportunity you've ever been presented with?
I completely agree. It is
really. I mean,
yeah. If you go back to the '90s, it was. The value was in the connectivity itself, right? If by virtue of connecting people, we derive value, we built e-commerce systems, we built customer service systems. We all take that for granted now, but just the value was just in getting more people connected. Then we went through this phase, I'd say, where the value was converging different technologies together and then doing unique things because technologies now were not proprietary, but they were brought together over IP. And both of those things still apply, but I would say they're not enough. So we are connecting, clearly we're connecting industrial systems. We're converging, different systems together. So in a building, we're converging lighting systems and HVAC systems and classic video systems, and so that you can have you can badge into your building and you can select an office, and when you show up there, your phone's pre-configured, your video unit's ready, everything about your experience is there, your lights are set the way you want them. But going forward, the value is in the insights and the decision-making that you enable with the customer. So the connectivity of that robot means absolutely nothing until you build the analytics capability that says, I now know when that may fail, and then you can take action to prevent it. So we're focused very much on all of those, but we have to get up the value stack with the customer.
Cisco's a huge company, and focus has at times in the past been a challenge. You're looking at this enormous opportunity in a million different directions, in elevators, in offices, in lighting. What are you doing to actually keep the company focused around these things? How are you making sure that you don't get sidetracked? It's very easy.
Oh, it's incredibly true. And you know, we had times in our history where we probably got a little bit too broad in what we were trying to achieve. I think you joked with me about one of those.
Just camera company.
Everybody always wants to talk about flip video, right? Like that was
Hey,
like
I liked him. You know, it's fine.
As John used to say, if that was the worst mistake we've made, then that's okay. But you know, we have to stay focused on where we add unique differentiated value based on our core capabilities. And I think any company that strays from that too far, and we've done it occasionally, that's when you realize you've gotten yourself in trouble. So everything for us starts with the network and the connectivity that has to be provided. But then we have these collaboration capabilities that are enabled through the network. We have tremendous security capabilities that are enabled through the network. We have the ability, we have this Jasper platform that we acquired that we have 31 million connected devices on it today, machine-to-machine devices, and we're adding 1 million a month. And I saw the article that was written where 5% of the Fortune 500, I think, theoretically have not embraced this digital revolution. Well, I'll tell you that there are 5,000 enterprise customers who have applications that they've written that are processing data off of this Jasper platform today, and we're adding 120 new customers every month that are taking advantage of that. So we just stay focused on expanding our value from the core of what we do well, and as long as we do that, I believe we'll remain differentiated.
So you're approaching your 1-year anniversary as CEO. It's next week, something like that.
Sure, it's not 5.
And you know, one thing, I looked at the stock's looking good, can't go wrong there. But look back, how do you feel about the last year? Have you been able to make the progress that you had? What were the lessons you learned? What were some of the mistakes that you've made?
Well, we've if you followed us, we've certainly gone through a lot of change in the last year.
Yes.
And it's you know, as you make this transition, and I would say any company, and we're no different, there's a massive transition going on right now. We all know that. And I think the thing you have to do is you have to be incredibly honest with yourself about the things that have made you great historically, and which ones of those are going to make you great in the future, and which ones of those are going to hold you back in the future. And you have to make those decisions, and then you have to understand, what are you not doing today that you need to going forward? And then you also have to make sure you have the right team that's energized by the opportunity, that is aligned, that actually works well together, that are moving forward. And you have to be very clear. And I think in this world, given the pace we're all trying to move, one of the biggest things as leaders that we can do is drive a level of transparency that we have never driven in the past. And I'm incredibly open with our employee base, to the extent that it's legally okay for me to be open with our employee base. But you know, we've made some mistakes. I've told the team early on that we're going to get 80% of the information we need, and we're going to make a decision. And what that means is that we're going to make some that we're going to have to adjust. And if you're not okay with us making decisions and then adjusting, then maybe this isn't a place for you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's just important. You just have to be really honest and move with tremendous speed.
What is Cisco not in the business in? We've kind of been dancing around this idea of what you're going into and what you're not going into. As you look forward, and I'm thinking right now about all that cash you've got on your balance sheet and what you might do with it. You know, what don't you want to be in? What do you want to be in?
Well, if you look at, we have actually made 15 acquisitions since I was announced as a CEO, and they all are connected with the future areas of importance for our customers and growth for the company. You know, cloud, security, analytics, you know, all of those things. So I think it's critically important to know. You can get caught up in these big technology buzzwords, and you know.
You just hit a bunch of them.
I know, and I actually joked on stage this week. We introduced when we were introducing some of the innovations that we were launching this week, I said, look, I just want to make sure you know this one hits like 3 of the buzzwords. It's cloud, it's security, it's analytics, it's machine learning, because it's just funny how these things come about. And I had an analyst yesterday ask me about the white box threat that's been out there forever. And
meaning the commodity.
yeah, it's just like, how are you going to do it? And I told him, I said, no one wakes up in the morning and says, I want to buy a white box. Right? There's a business issue they're trying to solve, and somehow they've connected this technology solution with that business issue. So what you have to do is go attack the business issue. Go understand what it is that's leading them there.
Yeah.
And in the case of this, as an example, it's the large web scale players just want to build out this massively automated infrastructure. And given that the vendors and the players in the industry hadn't provided that to them, they felt like they needed to build it. So we've been working with them and actually have been delivering on that to them. And but I think as it relates, you just have to, I think that the areas we won't play are those that just get away from our capabilities. And when we say analytics, we're very specific about what we mean. We mean analytics that are associated with our core capabilities. So pulling analytics out of the network because we see it before anybody else does.
I see.
Those kinds of things. And we're just going to stay very connected to what we do well.
You've been restructuring the company itself to try to pursue these opportunities, right? The divisions have changed. Been hiring a lot of software engineers, right, rather than hardware. Tell me a little bit about how you're retooling the company to pursue this.
It's quite funny, actually, because people talk about we're transitioning from a hardware to a software company. We have 28,000 engineers, and 23,000 of them are software engineers.
Jeez.
So the issue is that our historical business model monetized those software assets through a box that was sold as an integrated system, right? There's hardware and there's software together. But I competed with Cisco back in the early 90s.
That's right.
And I had the best hardware, and I lost. Right? And I didn't lose all the time, by the way. But, I think that the issue is you can move the solutions that you can build in software.
Yeah.
You can iterate more rapidly with your customer. You can actually continue to, the combination of cloud and software give you the ability to just add features at an amazing rate. And so we are hiring. So inside of software, that's one of those generic terms. Inside of software, there's a lot of modern application development capabilities. I actually was a software developer in the 80s.
That's right.
I have 0 skills today that would be helpful. Right?
I'm sure they remind you, too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Although I did hear this week from our customers that there's still some old COBOL applications out there where I might be able to go help, so we'll see.
Perfect.
So it's really about bringing in the talent that have different skills that understand how do you develop, in a modern development architecture, agile, cloud-based SaaS, and how do you think about the iteration of that with the customer? So we're definitely adding those kinds of skill sets, sure.
When you're competing, look, you have a plethora of major corporate customers. When you're competing, the funny thing about these different technologies that we're talking about is that there's such a convergence, right? When you're talking about the Internet of Things, you're talking about applications, you're talking about the actual tubes that connect things and everything in between. Who are you really up against when you sit down and you're competing for a deal these days as all of these things converge? Is it the largest companies, our favorite tech companies, or is it kind of the smaller ones? And you could take that from the security side or just the broader.
We have, clearly we play, in security we have some niche players that compete with us, but no one that has the ability to implement security at a network architecture layer like we do. I would say that by and large in the Internet of Things, we have a very unique role to play that I don't believe any other technology provider can actually play. There are certainly other technology providers who are going to add value on top of what we do as well.
Sure.
But it's a combination of different organizations. So, we partner with a tremendous number of the large IT players today. We've announced several partnerships.
You compete with them too.
We do in some cases, and it's been great to watch the industry mature to a point where you can say, you know what, we recognize we're going to compete over here, but it's the best thing for us and our customers if we can actually figure out a way to work together over here. And Microsoft's an example of that. And
sure.
We've launched a tremendous partnership with Apple. We have a phenomenal relationship and a partnership we launched with Ericsson in the service provider space. We've launched 2 pretty significant initiatives in the last few weeks with IBM around Watson integration with our collaboration portfolio, and then their integration of some of our collaboration assets into their portfolio. So I think the whole notion of strategic partnerships is fundamental to all of us helping our customers achieve what they're trying to achieve, because it's moving too fast for any one of us to do it all.
Right. So I'm going to come to the audience in just 2 minutes for questions. So if you have them, please think about them. You know, we're talking about security. We started with security and how that's such a big deal. We have some great security panels here at Brainstorm Tech. What are you seeing that we should be? You know, this is an industry that trades on fear. And what should we actually be worried about, and what's too overhyped? You know, I mean, you're talking to some of the biggest companies in the world. Where should we actually be paying attention?
Well, on the security front, I don't think that you should assume anything's overhyped. I mean, I think that the threat footprint is expanding. When you say you just added 8 million vehicles in Q1, not 8 million, but you added more vehicles in Q1 than we did mobile phones, and we're adding vending machines. I mean, we got vending machines connected to the Jasper platform so that you can do more efficient inventory management. You think about,
is that going to help me get the Twix bar out when it gets?
Well, it won't help you get it out. Well, that may be a
so
secondary application. We'll work on that for you.
Yeah, please do.
But just thinking about how you would service a route of vending machines historically is you would just have someone in a truck and they would ride by and they'd look at it, and then they'd go back to their truck and they would take it over. Now you know exactly what people are buying, so not only can you be efficient in whether you show up to actually change the inventory in a machine, you actually have visibility to what's selling more. Maybe I need 3 rows of the Twix bars instead of the one no one's buying.
That's what I've been saying the whole time. But
so there is value from that perspective.
Right.
But on the security front, I think that look, it's going to be a never-ending battle of just trying to stay ahead of the bad guys. And for us in tech, I think that's a great opportunity for us. But Cisco actually has probably if not the largest, one of the very largest databases of threat information on a daily basis of any company on the planet. We have 300 full-time threat analysts that are watching things all day long, every day. And one of the things we're trying to do now is really bring the large companies that have this intelligence, bring us together more effectively. They do a good job today, but I think we can even do more to share the threat information amongst us so that we can do. And what we announced this week we announced a product called Cloud Defense Orchestrator, which is
just rolls off the tongue,
Doesn't it though? We're still a technology company. We live in complexity, and we think if it's complex, then you're really smart. But it's cloud,
sure,
and it's defending, and it's orchestrating that defense.
I follow.
So when you dissect it, it really feels good. But what it allows you to do is you assess a threat, and then you can input what you'd like to do to defend against that threat, and have it completely disseminated across your infrastructure in a moment. And so those kinds of things are critically important, but I think we're going to be fighting this battle for a very long time.
I agree with you. All right, let's go to the audience for questions. Do we have any? Yes, way over here. All right, give it a minute. And of course, please identify yourself.
Hey, Chuck. Dan Primack from Fortune. Quick question, M&A question. What are your thoughts on the Dell EMC merger, specifically how that does or doesn't affect Cisco?
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time obviously with EMC over the years, and we have a great partnership with them despite the sort of competitive noise that's occurred between us and VMware, which is pretty well documented. EMC and the converged infrastructure solution that we put together still is widely accepted and loved by our customers. So we spent a lot of time talking about once they get to the acquisition that we're going to continue to support it. We're actually having discussions now about are there opportunities for us to even look at how we could partner more effectively. So we're very committed to making sure that our customers aren't impacted. I think it's obviously a complex transaction. I think that's intuitively obvious. But it's an interesting play, and when we look at our portfolio overlap, there's still very little, so we think there's an opportunity for us to continue to look at partnerships with them.
All right. I saw one over here somewhere. Yes.
Hi, Nick Dukoff, Northeastern University. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you.
Cisco has often in the past had a pretty high mix between contractors and full-time employees. How do you see the future of Cisco's talent mix being?
The 1099 economy.
That's a great question. I think that there's a few things that we're thinking about relative to our talent. First of all, we have, we've long been just incredibly focused on diversity of age, of ethnicity, of gender, and all those things which matter tremendously. My leadership team is incredibly diverse right now. On the talent front, we're really focused on the skill sets, but we're also really focused on bringing in, a lot of the, and I hate to say this for those of us who are in the third decade of our careers, but the youth see things differently, obviously, and so we're focused on that. As it relates to 1099 or whatever the contract space, I always believe that employees have a sense of pride, and we have full-time contractors that have a sense of pride as well. So I think that we would continue to use contractors on a task base, but in reality, I think if you're going to have someone working full-time, and we have some contractors that do work full-time, but I don't think that we'll see a radical shift in that over the next 5 years, honestly.
All right. I saw one down here. Yes, thank you.
I'm Michael Miller, ZBI and PC Magazine.
Hold it a little closer.
The question is, you have a large portfolio of networking products, collaboration products, more security products, now more cloud products. For a small or mid-sized business, orchestrating, collaborating, managing all of them is getting more and more complex.
Yes.
How do you solve that?
Yeah. So we made an acquisition about 3 years ago of a company called Meraki. And they had attacked this very issue. And they started with just Wi-Fi. And basically they have cloud-based, they started with cloud-based configuration of all the networking just to simplify it. And subsequent to that, they've added traditional networking products. They've added security capabilities. We actually just added voice capabilities to it. So for the small business that just wants sort of IT services and they want to have simplistic management, now they're layering on analytics capabilities around it. You can actually have location-based services from the access points and it's all cloud managed, cloud delivered, simplified. You actually can hit a button on their website when you're in and say, there's a wish list. And I'm telling you, sometimes you put in a wish list and 48 hours later it's deployed. So those kinds of things. And I think automating and extracting the complexity of this, you'll never take the complexity out because what we do is very difficult. But what we have to do is make it much more user-friendly, even in the Fortune 500, but we've been working very hard on that in the small business space.